Jake Brennan had been to exactly 3 planets before arriving at Kepler 7, and 2 of them had tried to kill him. So, when the welcome committee of nervous aliens started their safety briefing with the phrase, "certain death," he knew he was in for a good time. "Mr. Brennan," Ambassador Threll began, his feathers literally ruffling with anxiety. The Avari looked like someone had crossed a parrot with a anxiety disorder and given it a diplomat's badge. "We cannot stress enough the danger of Death World designation Sigma 9. 14 expeditions have entered the southern forest. 0 have returned." Jake nodded, only half listening, more focused on the complimentary snack table. Were those space cookies? Those looked like space cookies. Commander Kirsch, a 7-foot reptilian whose scales seemed to be set permanently to deeply concerned, slammed a clawed hand on the conference table. "This is not a joke, human. The apex predators of Sigma 9 are unlike anything in your experience. We've lost entire military units." Right, super dangerous, got it," Jake said, stuffing 3 space cookies into his jacket pocket. They were definitely space cookies. "So what exactly are we talking about here? Big teeth? Claws? Acid spit?" "Yes," Threll and Kirsch said in unison. "All of those things, plus pack hunting intelligence, thermal vision, and an observed taste for sentient prey," Threll added, pulling up a holographic image that looked like someone's nightmare had gone to the gym and gotten really serious about cardio. Jake studied the image. "Okay, sure. It looks scary. 6 legs, crystalline teeth, eyes that probably glowed in the dark, but he'd rehabilitated a Kodiak bear with a bad attitude and an infected tooth back in Montana. So how different could this be?" "Mr. Brennan," Threll continued, his voice dropping to what Jake assumed was supposed to be an ominous tone. "We are only showing you this because the Galactic Conservation Summit requires a human observer for Death World assessments. We are not, under any circumstances, suggesting you actually go there." Jake took a sip of whatever the aliens considered coffee. It tasted like regret and electrical fire. "So you're telling me there's a forest full of animals that nobody understands, that everyone's afraid of, and that might just need someone who actually knows how to handle wildlife instead of shooting at it?" Commander Kirsch's scales shifted to what Jake was pretty sure was the reptilian equivalent of a stress rash. "The creatures of Sigma 9 are not wildlife, human. They are calculated killing machines that have evolved for pure predation." "Yeah, that's what they said about wolves, too," Jake muttered, already mentally packing his gear. He had beef jerky in his quarters. Lots of beef jerky. In his experience, apex predators were just misunderstood dogs with better PR. "If you are considering what I think you are considering," Threll said, his feathers now standing completely on end, "I must formally advise against it in the strongest possible terms." Jake stood up, brushing space cookie crumbs off his jacket. "Look, Ambassador, I appreciate the concern, but I've been working with dangerous animals since I was 12. I'm pretty sure I can handle whatever's down there." The 2 aliens exchanged a look that clearly said, "Humans are insane, and we should have never invited them to the galactic community." "How bad could it be?" Jake added with a grin. In the corner of the room, a junior Avari staffer quietly began drafting a death certificate. The shuttle ride to Sigma 9 gave Jake plenty of time to regret that last statement. Not because he was scared, but because the pilot, a jittery insectoid named Chicks, spent the entire descent explaining in graphic detail how previous expeditions had been efficiently dismembered and consumed in under 4 minutes. Very reassuring, Chicks. "Really setting a positive tone here," Jake said, double-checking his backpack. "Jerky, check. First aid kit, check. His grandfather's lucky pocket knife, check. Water purification tablets, protein bars, and a concerning amount of optimism, check, check, check." The landing site was about a half-mile from the forest edge, because apparently even the shuttle refused to get closer. Jake hopped out, took a deep breath of alien air that smelled surprisingly like pine and regret, and headed toward the tree line. "Mr. Brennan," Chicks called from the shuttle door, "I will wait exactly 1 hour. If you are not back, I must assume you have been consumed and file the appropriate paperwork." "Your faith in me is truly touching," Jake called back. The forest was dense, dark, and decidedly ominous. Massive trees with bark that looked like obsidian stretched up into a canopy that blocked out most of the sunlight. The undergrowth was thick with plants that seemed to pull away as he walked past, which was either smart evolution or really unsettling. Jake was going with unsettling. He'd been walking for maybe 10 minutes when he heard it, a low growl that seemed to vibrate through his chest, coming from directly behind him. Jake turned slowly, hands visible and non-threatening, and came face to face with his first Sigma 9 apex predator. Okay, so the hologram had not been exaggerating. The creature was roughly the size of a grizzly bear, built like a panther, with sleek black fur that seemed to absorb light. 6 legs, each ending in claws that looked like they could open a can or a ribcage with equal ease. Eyes that glowed a soft amber. And teeth. So many teeth. The Night Stalker, according to the briefing materials, was a solitary ambush predator with a 98% kill success rate. "Hey there, buddy," Jake said softly. "Easy now." The creature snarled, taking a step forward, and that's when Jake noticed it. The slight limp on the rear left leg, the way the creature favored its right side, and there, just visible in the paw, a massive thorn from one of those obsidian trees. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," Jake muttered. "The universe-ending apex predator has a splinter?" The Night Stalker growled again, but there was a note of pain in it that Jake recognized from about 1,000 wounded animals back home. Okay, I know this is going to sound crazy," Jake said, slowly lowering himself to a crouch and reaching into his backpack. "But I'm going to help you out. Just try not to eat me." "I've got jerky." He pulled out a strip of teriyaki beef jerky and tossed it gently toward the creature. The Night Stalker sniffed it suspiciously, then ate it in one bite. The glowing eyes fixed on Jake with what he chose to interpret as curiosity, rather than selecting the best place to bite first. "Yeah, that's good stuff, right? Earth cow. We've been perfecting that recipe for generations." Jake pulled out another piece. "You want more? Let me see that paw." What happened next would later be described by xenobiologists as either the bravest or stupidest act in human history, with the jury still out on which. Jake approached the Night Stalker, knelt beside it, and examined the injured paw. The creature tensed, growling low, but didn't move. The thorn was deep, infected, and looked painful as hell. "This is going to hurt, buddy, but you'll feel better after. I promise." He pulled out his grandfather's knife, sterilized it with his lighter, and in one quick motion, extracted the thorn. The Night Stalker yowled, a sound that probably sent every creature in a 5-mile radius running for cover, but didn't attack. Jake quickly cleaned the wound with water and wrapped it with gauze from his first aid kit. "There, good as new." He offered another piece of jerky. The Night Stalker ate it delicately from his hand, then did something that would cause Ambassador Threll to faint when he saw the footage from Jake's body cam later. It purred. Not like a cat purr. Like a diesel engine wrapped in a subwoofer kind of purr. "Okay, so, you're not a universe-ending monster. You're just a really big cat with poor paw hygiene. I'm calling you Kevin." Kevin, the Night Stalker, headbutted Jake's chest with enough force to knock him on his ass, then curled up next to him, still purring. "This is already going better than the aliens predicted," Jake said, scratching behind Kevin's ears, which earned him an even louder purr. That's when he heard the howling. Multiple voices, coming from deeper in the forest. Pack hunters. Kevin's ears perked up, and Jake grinned. "Want to go make some more friends?" In the shuttle, Chicks was already halfway through the death certificate paperwork when his sensors picked up Jake's vitals. Still alive. Somehow still alive. He added a note to file with medical. "Humans may be clinically insane. Further study recommended." Jake followed the howling deeper into the forest with Kevin padding alongside him, occasionally stopping to rub against trees and mark territory like the galaxy's most terrifying house cat. The sounds were getting closer, and Jake could make out at least 5 or 6 distinct voices in the pack. "So, according to the briefing, these are Razorbacks," Jake said to Kevin, who tilted his massive head as if actually listening. "Cooperative pack hunters with, quote, strategic intelligence rivaling military tacticians, unquote. Which means they're probably smart enough not to pick a fight with whatever just became friends with a Night Stalker." Kevin purred in what Jake chose to interpret as agreement. They emerged into a clearing, and Jake immediately understood why the howling sounded so distressed. It wasn't hunting calls. It was panic. 6 wolf-like creatures, each about the size of a dirt bike and covered in scales that looked like natural armor plating, were circled around a fallen tree. The alpha, distinguishable by its larger size and the ridge of bone-white spikes along its spine, was frantically digging at the base of the tree. Underneath it, Jake could hear high-pitched whimpering. "Oh, come on," Jake sighed. "The terrifying apex predators have trapped puppies?" The alpha razorback spotted Jake and Kevin, and immediately went into threat posture. Hackles up, teeth bared, making a sound like a chainsaw gargling gravel. The rest of the pack formed up behind it, ready to defend their trapped young. Kevin growled back, a sound that made Jake's molars vibrate. Easy, both of you. Nobody needs to get bitey. Jake held up his hands. Kevin. Sit. Yes. You can sit. I saw you do it 5 minutes ago, don't play dumb. Kevin, remarkably, sat. The Razorback Alpha looked confused, which Jake figured was fair. Its natural predator had just obeyed a command from something that probably looked like a snack. Jake slowly reached into his backpack and pulled out more jerky. Okay, Dennis. I'm calling you Dennis. You look like a Dennis. Here's the deal, Dennis. I help you get your pups out. You don't eat me. And we all share some premium earth. Beef. Sound good? He tossed a piece of jerky to the Alpha. Dennis sniffed it, ate it, and made a sound that was probably the Razorback equivalent of, okay, you have my attention. Jake approached the fallen tree carefully, with Kevin providing backup and Dennis watching his every move with laser focus. The tree was massive, probably brought down in a recent storm, and had trapped 3 pups in the hollow beneath it. They were scared, whimpering, but looked uninjured. All right, this is going to take some physics. Jake examined the tree, found the balance point, and pulled out a thick branch to use as a lever. Dennis, I'm going to need your pack's help. When I lift, you pull them out. Got it? Dennis tilted his head, and Jake swore the creature understood him. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Jake threw his weight on the lever while Dennis and 2 other Razorbacks lunged forward, grabbed the pups by their scruffs, and yanked them free. The tree crashed back down, missing Jake's foot by inches. The pups immediately swarmed their pack, yipping and licking and doing all the things that young predators do when they're relieved and excited. Dennis approached Jake, and for a moment Jake wondered if this was where his luck ran out. Dennis licked his face, roughly, with a tongue that felt like sandpaper made of sandpaper. Okay, you're welcome, Jake laughed, pushing the massive head away and distributing jerky to the entire pack. You guys aren't so bad, just misunderstood dogs with better armor plating. That's when the ground started shaking. Oh, what now? Jake groaned. The thing that emerged from the forest made Kevin look like a house cat, and Dennis look like a chihuahua. Easily 12 feet tall at the shoulder, built like a bear that had been working out exclusively for violence, with fur that looked like copper wire, and a mouth that, yes, was definitely leaking some kind of acidic drool that was melting the vegetation where it fell. The Titan Maw. The briefing had called it the apex predator's apex predator. It was also, very clearly, miserable. The creature was groaning, swaying slightly, and its massive stomach was making sounds like a malfunctioning garbage disposal. It collapsed at the edge of the clearing, whimpering. Jake looked at Kevin, looked at Dennis and his pack, looked at the suffering Titan Maw. You know what? Why not? I'm already 3 for 3 on defying galactic extinction predictions. He approached the Titan Maw, which barely had the energy to growl at him. Jake examined the creature's mouth, the drool, the distended stomach, and the half-digested plants visible in its teeth. Oh, Barbara, you ate the glowy purple ones, didn't you? The ones that are super toxic? Yeah, I saw those. They're basically alien poison ivy, except you ate them. Barbara the Titan Maw groaned pathetically. Jake spent the next 20 minutes gathering the right non-toxic plants, the ones that grew near water sources with the blue-green leaves, and mashing them into a paste. He'd done this exact same thing for a sick black bear in Colorado once. Different planet, same concept. Open up, Barbara. This is going to taste awful, but it'll help. Barbara, desperate and in pain, ate the paste, then promptly vomited up a truly horrifying amount of toxic plant matter. Jake wisely stepped back. After a few minutes, Barbara's stomach sounds normalized. The acidic drool stopped. The massive creature looked at Jake with something like wonder, then flopped over and rolled onto her back in a display of trust that would make xenobiologists weep. Jake scratched her belly. Barbara made a sound like happy thunder. So, Jake said, looking at his assembled collection of apex predators who were now all lounging around him like oversized pets. Should we head back to the station? I feel like Threll is probably having a panic attack by now. Kevin purred. Dennis wagged his tail. Barbara rolled in the dirt contentedly. Yeah, this is going to be fun to explain. Chix the shuttle pilot had been doing breathing exercises for the past 45 minutes, which was difficult given that his species technically breathed through thoracic spiracles. He'd watched on his sensors as Jake's vital signs remained steady, watched as multiple massive heat signatures converged on the human's position, and waited for the inevitable flatline. It never came. Now Jake was walking back toward the landing site, and the sensors were showing something impossible. The heat signatures were following him. Voluntarily. No, Chicks whispered to himself. No, 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 no. Jake emerged from the tree line with Kevin padding beside him, Dennis and his pack flanking both sides, and Barbara bringing up the rear like a mobile mountain. Hey, Chicks! Jake called out cheerfully. Gonna need a bigger shuttle. Chicks fainted, just straight up collapsed in the shuttle doorway. That's fair, Jake said. The ride back to Kepler 7 was cramped, with Barbara barely fitting in the Kepler cargo hold and the Razorback pack distributed throughout the passenger compartment. Kevin had claimed the co-pilot seat and was watching the stars with what Jake swore was fascination. Chicks had regained consciousness but seemed to have lost the ability to form complete sentences, communicating only in squeaks and clicks of distress. Kepler 7 Control, this is Shuttle Gamma 1-2 requesting docking clearance. Chicks managed to say, his voice cracking. Gamma 1-2, you're cleared for Bay 7. Welcome back. We have medical standing by for Mr. Brennan's remains and… Wait, what? I said medical for Mr. Brennan's remains. No. I mean his vital signs are showing active. That can't be right. Run a diagnostic on your sensors. The sensors are fine, Chicks whispered. Everything is terrible, but the sensors are fine. When the shuttle doors opened into docking bay 7, several things happened simultaneously. First, the medical team saw Jake walk out, completely unharmed, scratching Kevin behind the ears. Second, Kevin walked out behind him, his six-legged gait making a sound like muffled thunder on the deck plating. Third, the entire Razorback pack emerged, with Dennis surveying the bay like he was considering real estate options. Fourth, Barbara squeezed out of the cargo hold, took one look at all the new smells, and sneezed, which echoed through the bay like a small explosion. The alarm started immediately. Breach, breach, breach. Hostile organisms detected. All personnel evacuate to safe zones. Security to docking bay 7. This is not a drill. Ambassador Threll's voice came over the intercom, several octaves higher than normal. Close the bay doors. Seal it. Seal everything. Oh God, someone tell me the human is already dead, so this makes sense. I'm fine, Jake yelled over the alarms. Kevin, sit. Dennis, pack formation. Barbara, stop sniffing that cargo container. You don't know where it's been. All three species obeyed. The security team arrived, heavily armed, and stopped dead in their tracks at the sight of a human casually commanding 3 different apex predators, like they were attending obedience school. Commander Kirsch pushed through the security line, his scales flushed to a color that probably indicated either rage or a medical emergency. Mr. Brennan, would you care to explain why you have brought 3 categories of extinction-level predators onto my station? 4 categories, technically, Jake said, gesturing to Dennis's pack. There's 6 Razorbacks, but to answer your question, they needed help and now they like me. Also, does anyone have more beef jerky? I'm completely out and Kevin's getting snacky. As if on cue, Kevin looked at Commander Kirsch and licked his chops. Kirsch took 3 steps backward. They are perfectly safe as long as nobody does anything threatening. Jake continued. Kevin had a thorn in his paw. Dennis's pups were trapped, and Barbara ate toxic plants. Basic wildlife rehabilitation. I'm honestly shocked nobody tried this before. Tried this? Threll's voice squawked over the intercom. Mr. Brennan, those creatures have killed hundreds of trained soldiers. Yeah, well, did those soldiers try not shooting at them first? Jake scratched Kevin's head, producing that diesel engine purr that made several security officers drop their weapons in shock. Because I'm starting to think that might have been your problem. Ambassador Threll appeared at the bay entrance, took one look at the scene, and promptly fainted, his feathers poofing out in all directions as he hit the deck. Is he okay? Jake asked. He does that, Commander Kirsch muttered, signaling for medical. His eyes never left Barbara, who was now investigating a stack of supply crates with intense curiosity. Mr. Brennan, I am trying to process how you survived 14 hours in a forest that has destroyed 14 military expeditions. 14 hours? I was only gone like 2 hours. Also, you're military. Expeditions probably tried to fight them. Jake shrugged. Treated them like animals that needed help instead of monsters that needed killing. Turns out that works pretty well. Dennis chose that moment to walk up to Commander Kirsch and sit, looking up at him expectantly. Is it waiting for something? Kirsch asked, his voice strangled. Yeah, you're supposed to pet him. He's a good boy. It has killed 17 Kronar warriors in documented attacks. Well, it hasn't killed me, and I helped save its pups. So maybe try being nice? Jake pulled out a protein bar and broke off a piece for Dennis, who accepted it delicately and wagged his tail. The tail wagging of a Razorback Alpha, it should be noted, was enough to dent the hull plating. A maintenance alert immediately appeared on Kirsch's datapad. He looked at it, looked at Jake, looked at the dent in his station's wall. I need a drink, Kirsch said, and a full xenobiological team, and possibly early retirement. Can we get these guys some food first? Jake asked. They've been very patient, but Barbara's getting that look again. Barbara's stomach rumbled, a sound like distant artillery. The entire security team took another step back. Fine, Kirsch said. But they stay in the bay until we figure out what in the name of the Galactic Council is happening here. Deal. Oh, and someone should probably wake up Threll. He's been down for a while and his color's getting weird. In the medical bay, a junior medic was already updating Jake's file with a new note. Subject appears to have domesticated the undomesticable. Recommend psychological evaluation. Recommend evaluation team wear protective gear. Recommend we all update our wills. Dr. Quelix arrived 3 hours later, slithering into docking bay 7 with a collection of scanning equipment that looked expensive and fragile. The slug-like xenobiologist was approximately 4 feet long, vaguely purple, and covered in a mucus that she assured everyone was perfectly natural and not at all gross. Jake wasn't convinced, but he'd worked with worse. Fascinating, Doctor. Quelix said, her voice translated through a device that made her sound vaguely British. Absolutely fascinating. The behavioral modifications are unprecedented. She was currently scanning Kevin, who was lying on his back getting belly rubs from Jake while purring loud enough to rattle the deck plating. Dennis and his pack were playing what appeared to be a game of tag in the corner of the bay. Barbara was napping, occasionally snoring in a way that made the lights flicker. Ambassador Threll, now conscious and heavily medicated, watched from behind a reinforced observation window. Commander Kirsch stood next to him, his scales still showing stress patterns. Doctor, Kirsch said over the intercom, please explain to me how this human has violated every known principle of predator behavior. Dr. Quelix adjusted her scanning equipment, leaving a small trail of, quote, mucus on the controls. Well, Commander, it appears that Mr. Brennan has successfully pack-bonded with 3 separate apex predator species. The Night Stalker recognizes him as Pride Leader. The Razorbacks have accepted him into their family unit, and the Titanmaw has imprinted on him as a caretaker. That's impossible, Threll said weakly. These creatures don't bond. They hunt. They kill. They've been studied for decades. They've been studied by species who approach them as threats to be neutralized. Jake called out, not looking up from Kevin's belly. Nobody tried talking to them, or, helping them when they were hurt. Dr. Quelix slithered closer to Jake, her eye stalks quivering with excitement. Mr. Brennan, your file indicates you come from Earth. Designation Death World Class 12. Yeah, that sounds about right. Everything back home either wants to eat you, poison you, or both. And yet Earth's dominant species, humans, have a documented history of domesticating other predators. Canines, felines, even avian raptors. Sure, dogs, cats, hawks. We've been doing it for thousands of years. Jake shrugged. It's not that complicated. You find an animal, you figure out what it needs, you provide that, and you don't act like prey. Most predators are just looking for food, safety, and not to be murdered. Same as everyone else. Dr. Quelix turned to the observation window. Gentlemen, I believe I've identified the issue. Humans didn't just survive on a death world. They thrived by befriending it. That's insane, Commander Kirsch said. That's humanity, Dr. Quelix corrected. Consider Earth's evolutionary history. Humans are persistence hunters with pattern recognition, intelligence, and social bonding capabilities that extend beyond their own species. They literally evolved to make friends with things that could kill them. We call it domestication, Jake added. My ancestors looked at wolves, apex predators that hunted in packs and could easily kill a human, and said, I'm going to feed that and see what happens. 15,000 years later, we've got chihuahuas and golden retrievers. You're telling me, Threll said, his voice faint, that humans domesticated wolves? Oh, that's just the start. Thanks for watching. That's the fence. That's just the start. We've domesticated horses, cattle, pigs, chickens, cats, ferrets, rabbits, and we're working on foxes. We've made apex predators into pets and herd animals into livestock. It's kind of our thing. Dr. Quellix's scanning equipment beeped excitedly. Remarkable. The chemical bonding signatures are identical to those I've observed in Earth canines with their human companions. The Night Stalker's brain is producing oxytocin when in contact with Mr. Brennan. It has literally bonded with him at a neurological level. Kevin's a good boy, Jake said, scratching under Kevin's chin. Kevin purred harder, and one of his 6 legs twitched in happiness. This changes everything we know about interspecies relations, Dr. Quellix continued. For decades, we've approached Deathworld fauna as obstacles to be avoided or destroyed, but humans approach them as potential companions. Or dinner, Jake added. Let's be honest, we also ate a lot of them. Yes. Well, that tracks with your predatory nature. Commander Kirsch's scales had shifted to a color that his species used to indicate deep philosophical concern. Dr. Quellix, are you suggesting that humans are more dangerous than the apex predators they've befriended? Dr. Quellix consulted her scanner readings. Commander, humans are apex predators. They're simply social apex predators with thumbs and an alarming capacity for empathy. They conquered their death world not by being the strongest or fastest, but by being smart enough to turn their competitors into allies. That's actually pretty cool when you put it that way, Jake said. Barbara woke up, yawned, and walked over to rest her massive head in Jake's lap. He absently patted her head while she made head. Happy thunder sounds. By the 7 moons, Threll whispered. We invited the apex predator's apex predator to join the Galactic Council, and gave him access to other death worlds, Krush added, his voice hollow. In my defense, Jake said, I did warn you guys that I was pretty good with animals. Nobody asked follow-up questions. Doctor. Quellix slithered back toward the observation window, leaving a glistening trail. I'll need to file a full report with the Xenobiological Institute. This is groundbreaking research. Mr. Brennan, would you be willing to participate in further studies? Sure, as long as I can keep Kevin, Dennis, and Barbara. Obviously. Separating you from them now would likely result in significant psychological distress for all parties. Possibly violent distress in the case of the Night Stalker. Kevin opened one glowing eye and looked at Dr. Quellix as if confirming this statement. Right then, Commander Kirsch said. I'm updating Mr. Brennan's file to indicate potential hazard classification, and I'm recommending that any future Death World assessments involving humans include appropriate warnings. What kind of warnings? Jake asked. The kind that say, may befriend creatures specifically evolved to end you and turn them into pets. Yeah, that's fair. The emergency session of the Galactic Conservation Summit convened the next morning, with roughly half the delegates attending via remote hologram, because they refused to be on the same station as Jake's pet collection. Ambassador Threll had requested and been granted a mild sedative before the proceedings. Jake sat in the center of the council chamber, with Kevin at his side, looking remarkably calm for someone who'd accidentally triggered an interstellar incident. Mr. Brennan, began Councillor Vrax, a being made mostly of crystalline structures and disapproval. In light of recent events, this council must address your unauthorized domestication of protected apex predators from Deathworld designation Sigma 9. In my defense, they followed me home. Can I keep them? Several delegates made sounds that the translator interpreted as exasperated groaning. Dr. Quellix, attending as an expert witness, slithered forward. If I may, Counselor, after extensive analysis, I believe Mr. Brennan has demonstrated a unique solution to our Deathworld assessment problem. Rather than avoiding dangerous fauna, humanity has a proven track record of coexistence. Coexistence? Commander Kirsch interjected. Doctor, he turned military-grade threats into lap animals in under 4 hours. Exactly my point, Commander. The council chamber erupted in multilingual debate. Jake used the opportunity to feed Kevin a protein bar he'd smuggled in his pocket. Councillor Vrax called for order, which took several minutes and one mild threat of adjournment. The council recognizes that Mr. Brennan's actions, while highly irregular, have provided valuable data on Sigma 9 fauna. However, we cannot simply ignore protocol. What if we change the protocol? Dr. Quellix suggested. We have dozens of death worlds with problematic apex predators disrupting colonization efforts and conservation programs. Traditional methods haven't worked. Perhaps it's time we tried the human approach. Ambassador Threll's feathers ruffled. You're suggesting we unleash Mr. Brennan on other death worlds? Deliberately? I'm suggesting we offer him employment. Jake perked up. I'm listening. Dr. Quellix pulled up a holographic map showing various death worlds with red warning markers. Sigma-9 was classified as unsalvageable due to its predator population. As of this morning, Mr. Brennan has effectively neutralized that threat without firing a single shot. Imagine applying this methodology to other worlds. You want me to make friends with more deadly space animals, Jake said slowly. We want to offer you the position of Galactic Wildlife Rehabilitation Specialist, Counselor Vrax corrected. Your responsibilities would include assessing Death World fauna, establishing peaceful contact protocols, and potentially domesticating or managing apex predator populations that threaten colonization or conservation efforts. Jake looked at Kevin, who looked back with glowing amber eyes and purred encouragingly. What's the pay like? Substantial, Vrax said. Plus full benefits, hazard compensation, and unlimited access to whatever Earth food products you deem necessary for your work. Beef jerky? Unlimited beef jerky, yes. I accept. On one condition. Kevin, Dennis, Barbara, and Dennis's pack come with me. They're my team now. The council exchanged glances. Commander Kreese shrugged. At this point, why not? We've already abandoned sanity. Excellent, Dr. Quellick said, her eye stalks quivering with excitement. I'll draw up the contracts immediately. Oh, and Mr. Brennan, your first assignment is already available. There's a death world in the Andromeda sector with an apex aquatic predator problem. Space sharks? Essentially, yes, Jake grinned. Outstanding. 3 weeks later, Jake walked through the corridors of Kepler-7 station on his way to Shuttle Bay 12. Kevin padded beside him, now wearing a collar with a tag that read, Emotional Support Apex Predator. Dennis and his pack flanked them in formation, their scales polished and gleaming. Barbara brought up the rear, carefully avoiding the overhead pipes she dented during her last walk through this section. Station personnel scrambled out of the way, pressing themselves against walls and ducking into doorways. A junior officer dropped his datapad. A visiting dignitary from the Plevin Collective fainted. A maintenance bot calculated the most efficient escape route and took it. Mr. Brennan, a voice called. Ambassador Threll approached cautiously, his feathers only slightly ruffled now. I wanted to wish you success on your new assignment, and to apologize for doubting your abilities. No hard feelings, Ambassador. You were right to be concerned. Those are dangerous animals on Sigma-9, and yet you befriended them. Yeah, well. Jake scratched Kevin behind the ears, producing that now familiar diesel purr. Turns out most dangerous things just need someone to give them a chance, plus snacks. Snacks help. Dennis wagged his tail, causing a nearby wall panel to vibrate ominously. Maintenance alerts appeared on several datapads throughout the station. The Council has asked me to convey their appreciation for your work, Threll continued, though they've also asked me to remind you that domestication of protected species should be conducted with appropriate documentation. I promise to file all the proper paperwork, probably. Most of it. Barbara sneezed, and the resulting blast of air ruffled Threll's feathers and set off 3 different environmental alerts. Yes, well, safe travels, Mr. Brennan. Try not to befriend anything too catastrophic. Jake grinned and continued toward the shuttle bay, his collection of apex predators following like the galaxy's most terrifying parade. Behind him, station life slowly returned to normal, or whatever passed for normal now that humanity had joined the galactic community. In his office, Commander Kirsch updated Jake's personnel file one final time. Under threat assessment, he typed, extreme, but primarily to our understanding of predatory behavior and our collective sense of what's possible. Recommend other species, avoid challenging him to contests involving dangerous animals. He will win and make friends with the animals in the process. Under notes, he added, humans are terrifying, but at least they're terrifying in helpful ways. Usually. Update. They're definitely on our side. Update. We think. Update. Please let them be on our side. And in Shuttle Bay 12, Jake strapped in for departure, surrounded by creatures that had been classified as unkillable nightmares, now competing for space in his lap like oversized puppies. All right, team, he said, pulling up the mission brief for their next death world. Let's go make some new friends, and maybe stop for tacos on the way. Does anyone know if the station in the Andromeda sector has tacos? Kevin purred. Dennis wagged his tail. Barbara made happy thunder sounds. The shuttle pilot, a brave Avari named Scree who'd volunteered specifically because this was the best story in the fleet, laughed and engaged the engines. Kepler-7 Control, this is Shuttle Phoenix 1, requesting departure clearance. Phoenix 1, you are cleared for departure. Good luck out there. Try not to adopt anything that could eat a cruiser. No promises, Jake called out cheerfully. As the shuttle lifted off and headed toward the stars, a junior technician in traffic control turned to his supervisor. Do you think he'll actually succeed, befriending apex predators across the galaxy? The supervisor, a veteran who'd seen 3 decades of impossible things become routine, smiled. He's human. They looked at their own death world and decided everything on it should be either their friend or their dinner. My money's on yes. Should we be worried? Nah. If humans wanted to conquer the galaxy, they'd have done it already. Instead, they're going to make friends with it, whether it wants to be friends or not. The shuttle disappeared into faster-than-light travel, carrying one human and his collection of reformed apex predators toward their next adventure. And somewhere in the Galactic Council archives, a note was added to humanity's species file. Approach with caution, respect, and ideally snacks. They mean well, but their definition of pet differs significantly from galactic norms. Do not, under any circumstances, tell them something is too dangerous to befriend. They will take this as a challenge.